Hello everyone, I'm Valerie with Mariposa Creations by Valerie, and I am a proud brand ambassador for Redesign with Prima. Today's focus is going to be on casting molds, and these are my favorites to cast with. I cast with casting mix, casting resin, and air dry clay. And trust me when I say they don't always behave the same. So I want you to take notes. I want you to ask questions in the comments because I do check and respond. And if you're ready, let's get started. I kept these projects simple on purpose. I wanted the molds and each casting medium to be the stars of the show. I chose the Feathered Stillness Decor Mold for all three castings. Left side, casting mix. Middle, air dry clay. Right, Amazing Casting Resin. First, let's take a look at Amazing Casting Resin. This is one of the three casting mediums I use regularly, and each has its own strengths depending on the project. Let's dive in. Remember gloves. Amazing Casting Resin is a two-part system. Simply measure part A and part B in a 1-to-1 ratio, either by volume or by weight, before mixing them together. After part A and part B are combined, you'll have about 2 minutes to mix and pour. So I always have my molds and supplies ready to go before I begin. I know it's ready to pour when the mixture is clear and the bottom of the cup is warm to the touch. Make sure you're pouring on a level surface. The Amazing Casting Resin needs about 10 to 15 minutes before you can demold. A sign that it's ready is when you take your thumb and you pull the silicone mold back and the casting pops forward. The casting resin is somewhat flexible when you immediately demold, but after about 45 minutes, it becomes very rigid. Amazing Casting Resin is not porous, so when you go to paint, it's actually pretty easy to do, and usually I only need one coat. For all three of these products, I am using water-based acrylic paints because they are easy to blend and easy to seal. The Amazing Casting Resin is normally what I use to apply to furniture, not always, but oftentimes, because of its durability. In this case, I am just applying it to a cutting board just to show you a project that is kind of quick and easy. And in this case, it's flat, but I could have actually applied it to a curved surface if I did it quickly, because like I said, resin, a casting resin actually has some flexibility at the beginning. Once I decide how I want each of the castings to sit in a design, I go ahead and I use Titebond Quick and Thick, which is a water-based glue, and I apply a thin coat to the back of the casting resin, and then I go ahead and I press it down, and I use a soft brush and a wet wipe to make sure that any excess glue is removed. Once glued in place, I give it about 2 hours and then it's usually dry. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish this. I get the excess glue removed, and then I'm just going to move it out of the way and let it dry naturally. These projects are just a starting point. You can add stencils, transfers, lettering, or your own creative touches to make these projects uniquely yours. Next is air dry clay. I use it when I want to reshape a casting, work on curved surfaces, or create layered dimensional designs. I lightly prepare my silicone mold with a tiny amount of baby oil or cornstarch to help the clay release cleanly. Then I soften the clay by conditioning it in my hands before pressing it firmly into the mold. Here's one of my favorite tips. I use a small wooden dowel, just like a tiny rolling pin, to press the clay evenly into the mold before trimming away the excess. I like to use a flexible artist's palette knife to remove the excess clay, but your fingers work just as well. The goal is a smooth, even back. I like to flip the mold upside down before releasing the clay. It lets gravity do the work, making release easier and helping to preserve the details. One of air dry clay's biggest advantages is its flexibility. While it's still soft, you can reshape the casting to create an entirely different look. To prepare the glass vase, I mixed soft matte gel and chalk paste in a 1-to-1 ratio. The soft matte gel helps the paint adhere beautifully to the glass. I stippled the mixture on with a natural bristle brush, and once dry, the vase was ready for the clay castings. Another advantage of air dry clay is how easy it is to customize. I removed the heron's legs so I could position the body exactly where I wanted it, then simply reattach the legs. Once dry, the seam is invisible. Use a light touch when pressing the casting into place. Gentle pressure is all you need to preserve all that beautiful detail. One of the unique advantages of air dry clay is the ability to layer multiple castings. While the clay is still soft, you can blend the edges so they appear to melt into one continuous design. Here's an important tip. You can glue air dry clay to your project while it's still wet, but wait at least 24 hours and until it's completely dry before painting. Because air dry clay is porous, it absorbs the first coat of paint. Allow plenty of drying time before applying a second coat. Painting too soon can reactivate any remaining moisture in the clay. I love using watered down acrylics to build a faux patina. Letting the paint flow naturally into the details creates depth and gives the piece a beautifully aged appearance. Reshape it, layer it, wrap it around curves. That's the beauty of air dry clay. Let's finish with Redesign with Prima's casting mix. This is my choice when I want to capture the most intricate detail. To prepare casting mix, combine 2 parts powder with 1 part water and stir until smooth. Before every pour, I like to give it another quick stir. The powder can settle to the bottom, and remixing keeps the mixture nice and consistent. I let my castings cure for at least 90 minutes. This helps them to dry to a hard, smooth finish. Unlike a more flexible casting, casting mix cures to a rigid finish. I gently peel the mold away while supporting the casting to protect those beautiful details. Just look at this detail. Like air dry clay, casting mix is porous and may require a second coat of paint for full coverage. The casting mix casting is on the left and the casting resin is on the right. I am starting with a wood frame blank from my local hobby store and blending acrylic paints to create the sky, water, and sand. Once the paint's fully dry, I add snippets of the MIDI transfer Whispers by the Marsh, and I'm just adding a couple of pieces to give a little extra interest. Before I begin gluing, I like to dry fit my castings to make sure I'm happy with the overall design. Once I'm happy with the layout, I adhere the castings just as I did with the previous two projects. This project showcases the beautiful, intricate detail you can achieve with casting mix. Each one of these projects was created using a different casting medium, each with its own strengths. Now, let me leave you with one final guide. I hope this guide helps. It's based on my own experience creating with all three casting media. Pause here or take a screenshot if you'd like to save it for future reference.